But I think you're going to like this, Dan. So the number one mistake that just about everybody out there, if you're not a world champion,
Number one on the list, maybe
number
not
one on the
most
list,
important, which is
not the
coming
most
later.
important, right? Exactly, is you're not doing enough kazushi.
Right.
What do you think about that thing? Do you know what kazushi is?
We went through this once before,
did.
and I was like, isn't that Sakuraba's first name?
Oh, that's right.
And
Sakuraba, the Gracie Killer, his first name is Kazushi, Kazushi. This is Kuzushi, Kuzushi.
It's off balancing?
That's it.
Got
That's
it.
man. Yeah, yeah. So essentially, whenever you're trying to do anything in jiu-jitsu with somebody with a certain level of skill, if you don't proceed it with kazushi, it's just not going to work, you know? If you're beating up some poor, untrained person, then, yeah, you don't have to worry about kazushi. You can just do anything you want to them. But once somebody has some basis in jiu-jitsu, you've got to start off-balancing them. And you've got to off-balance them basically constantly. You've got to start and keep off-balancing them until you're in a position of control. When you're controlling them, then you can probably stop off-balancing them. But until then, to get to control, you have to off-balance.
Now, what do you think about this for specific advice? Because
Yeah.
a long time ago, I think you were talking to me about this. And I was in one of these modes where I was like, I have no guard, say. You know, I was like, after years of jiu-jitsu, all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, I have no guard. I don't know what is going on. And one thought was, just focus on kazushi for now. So if someone's in your guard and you're not really sure what sort of attack you want to do, you're like, my arm bars, my triangle stinks. I don't know. Just start with that. Like, get them off balance. You know, kick out supporting limbs.
Dan, that's
get their weight,
great
and then
advice.
see what develops from there.
Yeah,
because then it's something to do. You're not just sitting there in the guard holding their gi or sitting there going, I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know, like, so you have something to do. Just keep them. You know, maybe you're pulling them forward. Maybe you're moving
agree.
their knee out.
Yeah.
You know,
You're basically breaking their posture incrementally. So if with a good player, I'm not going to be able to just grab him and sweep him to his back and get on top. But I might be able to, like you said, push his leg out a little bit, start to break his posture down, get his head out in front of his hips, and put him in a worse and worse position where now I might be able to actually do something. Yeah, so that's perfect advice, actually. And I think, Dan, the heavier the players are, the more important it is. Like if you're 125 pounds, like those guys, their strength to weight ratio is so enormous that they can do almost anything, right? And they can go from a dead start and maybe sweep somebody or reverse somebody. But if you're 230 or whatever, you know, like you got to get things rocking and rolling a little bit. You got to get things moving. And it has a lot to do with momentum. So I've been talking a lot about momentum in the academy, Dan. So here's the way I describe momentum. Imagine somebody jogging by me, and I step in front of them, and I try to push them on their chest to stop them. That's like a collision of energy, right? And it takes a lot of energy. Who knows? He might run me over. I might be able to stop him. Depends on our relative mass and power and so forth. But somebody could be running by me, and I just push them a little bit on their back as they're running by me, and they might stumble and fall. So that is really where we're looking for our momentum in jiu-jitsu, is where we're giving them a little bit of a push in the direction that they're already going. And then that small investment of energy can have a big effect on on their balance and where they are and so forth.
Right. Didn't you just recently, when you just competed,
Yeah.
did you go against a guy who was 230? Was that?
I think he was bigger, Dan. Yeah, he was huge.
250
His arms,
yeah.
he might have been
He
more like that.
He
yeah.
looked like a comic book character.
Yeah.
I saw a picture.
He was like a bodybuilder type guy. Yeah,
And
really powerful.
You won by sweep, right? Like
Yes.
you won on points with a sweep.
Yes.
So you very recently got in someone who had a huge weight advantage. You must have used the same principle, am I right? Like to win the.
Exactly,
like,
I did. Yeah.
Looking at him, it looked like you could not, you could not just throw him. You know.
No. If you went force against somebody that powerful, yeah, you're going to lose for the most part, unless you somehow happen to be more powerful, which I wasn't. Yeah. So I got to a position of X guard, and I went to sweep him in one direction, Dan, and he fought that and fought back, and then I changed direction, and that's how the sweep happened. So that's exactly it. I pushed him in the way he was already going, and that's the kazushi. Like, so sometimes kazushi is you're combining moves, two complementary moves that fit together. So I tried to sweep him one way, he resisted strongly, so I changed directions into the other way, and then I secured my sweep. Yeah, so that's exactly what happened, and that's exactly what you have to do in jiu-jitsu, especially with bigger people, or you're not going to be able to move them at all. Yeah.
Is that sort of a very basic level sort of idea that often if you move someone one way, they're going to push back the other way, and if you're ready for it, you just send them that way?
That's exactly it, Dan. Yeah. So I've been doing a little bit of deep half, not to get too technical, but what's worked for me is I go into the position, and as soon as I meet a certain amount of resistance, I literally change directions and go completely the other way. And if I meet some resistance that way, and then I respond and turn in the other direction and so forth until I end up in a superior position. So the question is, like, when do I know? How do I know when to change directions? So that's something you can only gather from experience. But essentially, when you start to feel significant resistance, you probably should just change direction. And then it seems like, Dan, this, a lot of our videos are titled "Do This for BJJ and Life." Seems like there's got to be some life lesson in this kazushi and this momentum.
Move people the way
they
they're
want to be
already going.
They're already going. What do you think?
Yeah.
There's got to be something there. What did I come? Oh, I came up with this. There's a guy I've talked about, I think, on this podcast before. His name is B.J. Fogg. He's a professor at Stanford, and he had a book called Tiny Habits. So the idea is if you're trying to create a new habit for yourself, you want to take the smallest increment of the habit and piggyback it on something you're already doing. So that's the momentum, something you're already doing. So let's say you brush your teeth every night, but you don't floss. So he says, after you brush your teeth, floss one tooth.
Right.
And then eventually you're just flossing, and then it becomes a habit. But you jump on the momentum of the habit you already have.
Yeah. I get the idea, too, that you're like, it's so much easier to just say, I'll floss one tooth.
Right.
But then you're in the habit of you have the floss out, and
right.
You move from there.
Which I'm a big fan of that, because I'm a world-class procrastinator myself. I can really procrastinate on things.
And one more, also from the jiu-jitsu point, from my perspective too, even if you're not sweeping the person, or even if you're not having some spectacular success, they're dealing with what you're doing instead of like passing your guard, for example, right?
That is so true, Dan.
Even if you're not sweeping them, they're getting their knee kicked out and they're getting off balance, and they're dealing with that instead of progressing against you. So I've always thought that was another thing that, even for me, like, who I think my guard's no good, it's something if you just sort of have the guy like, I'm dealing with this person shoving me and moving me and trying to get around me.
You put them on the defensive. It's actually very effective. My son mentioned this the other day. He's like, I'm just always attacking now. I'm not even I just keep attacking, and then what happens is you put them entirely on the defensive, and things get easier. It seems like, well, if I'm always attacking, I must be expending a lot of energy. But the reality is you end up spending less energy in total, because you're becoming more effective, and you get them off balance, and they can't resist effectively.
And defending's tiring.
Defending's tiring, yeah. And if you don't attack and you get in a worse position, like the guy gets chest to chest on you, now you got to work really hard to get out of that, which is no fun. But if I keep attacking you in the beginning when you don't have your weight on me, I end up spending less energy, and it's more effective. Yeah.
With stand-up, I'd make the mistake of trying to save energy or getting exhausted in stand-up. So then it's like clinch and go against the wall, and it's 10 times as exhausting. I would do that all the time. Let me just clinch and get in this.
That wall work is exhausting, right? Yeah.
But it feels for a second like, I'm so tired. Let me just grab them. And then I'm like, now I'm twice as tired.
Right. Yeah, I was watching the UFC a couple weeks ago, and the guy was saying that you know, it was two fighters. One guy seemed like he started to feel like he was getting the worst of it, so he would desperately look for the takedown. And when you're desperately trying to take somebody down, that's not a good place to be, right?
Right.
Very cool. All right. The second biggest mistake people are making